Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, part 4 of our season preview series, asking and answering the question, can Devin Booker and or Kevin Durant match the best players in the NBA and come away with a championship? Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Suns. I'm Brendon Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Thursday. Don't forget, Locked On Suns is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So click that follow or subscribe button, become an everydayer, and get locked onto the Phoenix Suns each and every day. Today's episode, guys, is brought to you by the lovely people at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5. Get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, joining me as always, the executive producer of The Drive on Fox Sports 910 each morning from pretty nice weather downtown Phoenix.
It was
How
nice.
Are we feeling? Ben Garcia.
The weather was nice this morning. I mean, even in the middle of the day yesterday, in the shade, it wasn't bad. We are starting to turn the page here. But also, Brendon, imagine not being an everydayer. Imagine. I pray for those people. Certainly.
Yeah, I don't know what that would be like. I mean, I'm here every day. I love it. So I feel like
I'm here every day. I'm the flexible one. Doing it from my house. I'm doing it from here.
You are.
You're going to concerts and I just work. It's fine.
Putting you to work already, making you adjust to me. Appreciate it. All right. We have a question to ask and answer as we have every day this week, as we will every day for the next couple of weeks to preview the 2024-2025 Phoenix Suns season. And we're going to take a very close look at the two best players on this Suns team, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant. And let me set the table for this one, Ben, because it feels like maybe a negative approach here, but I don't think that's what you and I think of it as. And there's a very specific reason that we're talking about this through this lens. It's not to say Devin Booker's not this, Kevin Durant's not that, whatever. It is basically to just illustrate and emphasize and highlight that in 2021, 2022, and 2023, as we talked a little bit about yesterday, the Suns lost to players that were better than anybody on their team. And there was almost no way to argue that. Now, this past year in 2024, things went haywire. Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns. I don't think anyone would say that those guys are better than the Suns' best players. It was more of a team effort for the Wolves. Maybe that's an aberration. Maybe not. We'll see. But you need great elite talent. The end of games, the beginning of games, regular season playoff, you just need that. It's basketball. There's 5 dudes on a court. The best guys in the league win titles. How do you feel about the duo of Devin Booker and Kevin Durant as those types of guys heading into the season?
I don't know if there's a duo, including Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, that is better than the duo of Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. Like, I'm thinking about it. I'd take Devin Booker and Kevin Durant over Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. I would take Kevin Durant, Devin Booker over Embiid and Paul George. I would take them over Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges. I'd take them over LeBron James and Anthony Davis, certainly. The duo is not what I'm worried about. The problem with putting so much stock in a duo is one of them could get hurt. You are solely, each of them are dependent on each other to match the other person's deficiencies. What's Devin Booker's glaring deficiency that he literally cannot fix? He's kind of small. Kevin Durant makes up for that. Also, Devin Booker, this he can fix, but it's probably not going to happen, and it's not terrible, but he's not a great three-point shooter. Kevin Durant is. Devin Booker at this stage of his career is just younger. He could take more of the brunt, more of the beating. Kevin Durant's not really doing that at this point of his career. Also, I think Devin Booker's just the best volume and efficient, just from my eyes. I know that's not what the statistics say. Efficient and volume shooters and scorers in the NBA, where Kevin Durant, he does have to take some nights off and at times does take plays off. He's just older. I get that. The duo of those two, not worried about at all. Singularly, I think Kevin Durant's still a top 5 player in the NBA. I think Devin Booker's probably towards the end of 10. But you start looking at around the league, Anthony Edwards is probably going to make that next jump. And I know some Suns fans it's a very touchy subject. Who's better, Anthony Edwards, Devin Booker? I just kind of got to lean on the playoff series that they played. Although, man, Anthony Edwards was so bad after that. Let's just call it a wash. But still, Luka Doncic, better than Kevin Durant and Devin Booker individually. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, really close to the Devin Booker, Kevin Durant tier. That one I think is still very debatable. And Shai as well is older than you think. So it's not the duo that worries me. It is the singular guy on the team. How much better are they than this, than that guy? Do you kind of feel the same way?
I do. And we're on the same page with that. And we'll get to that, I think, next, because I want to start positive a little bit. The Suns, since KD got here, Book and Durant, now this maybe isn't positive. They're 6-9 in the postseason. Okay. They were 6-5 in 2023, and then they got swept this past year. The weird part of this, though, is overall, they played just shy of 2,500 minutes on the court together at the same time since KD got here. They're only +4 in net rating. They only have a 122 offensive rating. Now, those things I say only. A lot of teams would kill to have two players that have some numbers that good. The Charlotte Hornets aren't sitting there, poo-pooing that, of course. But for the best of the best teams, that's only good. It's not great yet. And I guess when I kind of think of the duo side of this, because I agree, it's one of the funny things about this team is even with how inconsistent last year was, even with the fact that they haven't even gotten past the second round together and haven't gotten past the second round as a team since 2021, I agree with you. They still have a duo that you would put up against anybody. And of course, all those fan bases would probably bicker with us over that. Big three, you would probably, even including Beal, and he's fallen off a bit, you probably still would take the Suns' best three players over a lot of other teams. So here's where I kind of came down on it in terms of thinking of them together, and can the sum of its parts maybe make up for some of the one-on-one stuff, which we will get into next. What I kind of want to see this year is, I think that it's clear if you hear Book and KD talk about basketball, about each other as teammates, about how they see the game, about how they want to play, they have chemistry. They had chemistry before they ever even played together. They just see things and feel things and experience basketball the same way. But I haven't seen them used together and playing off of each other and complementing each other as much as some of the other best tandems in the NBA do. And that's what I think, if I'm just starting with that point of, hey, they have two guys, maybe they don't need one to be better than Nikola Jokic. To believe that, I got to see them meld to an even higher degree this season.
Just so people understand that we aren't trying to be negative. We both hold the big three, but mainly the big two, to a much higher standard than it seems like the rest of the league. If we just went through it, is there any big two that's better than Kevin Durant and Devin Booker at their best? And we're always going to assume at their best, right? But we have to do that with other teams too. Is it just Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic that we would take over those two guys?
You went through it, right? I mean, I think that
I don't think there's anyone.
I don't really think that there's anybody you would say is for sure ahead. Okay, that's how I would put it. I think that at times maybe Luka and Kyrie, right? Kyrie is somewhat of a streaky player. He can get there, but it's not every night. Oklahoma City, I got to see who else besides Shai is actually going to prove that. Okay, Chet, J-Dub, those guys are theoretical more so than actual superstars right now. Maybe that leap comes. I don't believe in Cat. I don't think that Murray is really at that level. I think Jokic is just so great. It's the same way that nobody really would have said Amare Stoudemire was an MVP. He just happened to have a tandem with an MVP that was killer. I think of it kind of the same way. Philly, maybe, but you're talking about Maxey at the front end. George at the back end? Do one of those guys have a kind of unexpectedly great season? Dame and Giannis, maybe, but health,
That's a good one.
small,
That's a good one.
older, we'll see. And Boston, I mean, I think of Boston as a sum of its parts team much more than a top 2 team. Even though the Jays have done a hell of a lot in their first 7-8 years together, it's incredible. It's legendary. They won a title. I still don't think many people say, wow, it's those two are the reason. So I think the Suns are right there. And the Lakers maybe have a shot, but LeBron's old. That's tough to say.
I don't think it's hard. The Lakers one is really hard. I won't even touch that one. But if the Suns are going to win a championship, and that's the ultimate goal for every Suns fan this year, we already talked championship or bust. It's not going to just be Devin Booker or Kevin Durant, but it's a really, really nice starting point. And now that I've really taken a second to think about it with you, and I should have thought about this pre-show, but for some reason it just never came up. They do have the best tandem in the NBA. And you brought up a good point, and I would love for you to expand on that a little bit more. Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, they might be a better tandem, not because they're both highly skilled. You had just mentioned Nikola Jokic just all the way up here, and Murray's somewhere down here, but Nikola makes up for a lot of that. But the biggest thing, those two play extraordinarily well together. How do you think, how could it be made better? The tandem of Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, that I absolutely agree with you, was not maximized to the best of its ability. And you could blame that on Frank Vogel, could blame that on injuries. Where are you on that?
You know what I'm going to do, Ben? I'm going to make a note of this in our questions, and we are going to answer that, I think, more at a different time, because we need to focus on the Suns versus the rest of the league. And I frankly think that's a whole show. So I think it's a great question to dive into, and we can both do prep on it. I have too many thoughts to squeeze in before we hear from our lovely friends at the FanDuel Sportsbook, and then talk about where things look, how things look when we do stack up. Who is the top player on the Suns team? What does that even mean? And how do they compare to the number ones on the other team once we get out of duo world? We'll get there next. First, today's show is brought to you by the Gametime app. I switched you guys up there. They have a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I'm going to a concert tonight, as Ben mentioned. I'm forcing him to record this podcast on the run because I'm going to the Crescent Ballroom downtown, seeing a little show. Bought those tickets through Gametime. Frankly, I don't even look at the other places anymore. I look at Gametime first because they're bound to have options for every event by the time I'm thinking of going. And for the most part, the prices, they're definitely not going to be worse. And most of the time, they're going to be better. You also see the view from your seat and everything else right up front. So you're not wondering and worrying about what it's going to look like. Okay, where am I? Can I see? Do I have to crane my neck? All this stuff. You know all of it. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime, just like I did. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account. Again, code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Alrighty, Ben, let's keep it rolling here. So let's open this part of the conversation this way. And I want to remind everybody to check out the Locked On NBA podcast all month long for season preview coverage across the entire league heading into the 24-25 season. Who is more equipped to handle the primary scoring burden for this team in 2024? Because that's really what we're talking about when we say number one, whose team is it? All this kind of nonsense. Yeah, maybe there's a leadership aspect to that. Maybe there's a vocal locker room presence. That's not really what we're talking about. Giannis beat the Suns because he could score by himself more consistently than Chris Paul or Devin Booker. Luka, Jokic. That's when it really comes down to it, late in games, in the playoffs, when guys are playing 40 minutes, that's what you're talking about. Who can create offense the best? So between Booker and Durant, who do you think that will be for the Suns this season?
I'm really happy you phrased the criteria first before you just kind of asked me, because in the regular season, I do 1000% believe it's going to be Devin Booker. He's just younger, Right now, fresher legs, able to play both sides of the court more consistently than Kevin Durant. Not going to be as affected by back-to-backs like Kevin Durant will be. But in the playoffs, I think it's very clear it's Kevin Durant. In this league, the teams that oftentimes win championships are led by guys who 6'7" and up, but mostly 6'8", 6'9" guys, bigger dudes that are durable outside of Steph Curry, who you could still argue without Kevin Durant, how many championships is he going to win? But he still won 2 without him. So I'll leave that in there. But Steph Curry, he's the statistical anomaly. And that's because he can shoot 60 feet out and he's not banging with bodies all night. Kevin Durant is just well equipped and is the prototypical MVP on a championship winning team. We saw again with Jaylen Brown, 6'8", bigger. He was clearly the front runner for that Celtics team this year. I just don't think Devin Booker has the prototypical makeup of a guy that can lead a team to a championship and win it. Now, can he get you there with some breaks along the way? Absolutely, he's done that. But like you had said it, Giannis Antetokounmpo, they won that championship because he could just score at will. Devin Booker at times was invisible in that Timberwolves series because you could throw a bunch of defenders at him. And because he's a little bit smaller, it's easier to kind of be able to take him out of games. He's still a elite level shot maker. And we saw him in the playoffs 2 years ago go full-blown supernova nuclear Devin Booker.
Yep.
But I just have more faith in the Luka Doncic's of the world, the Jaylen Browns of the world, the LeBron Jameses of the world, the Kevin Durant's of the world, the years ago Dirk Nowitzki's of the world. Guys who just have the physical makeup to deal with the duality that is the playoffs and the durability and score at will. And I just don't know if Devin Booker can do that. I think he's better equipped for the 2 option as not the focal point on a Suns playoff run. In the regular season, yeah, he's going to eat.
I love all that. We have some smaller questions to answer that I had in our outline. I already am deleting them. I think we have enough to talk about here. So I look, and it's not even a disagreement. And like, let me just start because I can already imagine Kevin Durant happening to click on this podcast on YouTube and wanting to just shut us down, calling our bosses and saying cancel the Locked On Suns podcast because these are the exact kinds of conversations that he has been plagued by his whole career and absolutely hates, and so do his fans, and that's fine. It is mostly not an irrelevant question. Let me not put it that way because then it's like, why are we talking about it?
Mm-hmm.
The answer could be either one, and the Suns could be in business either way, right? Like, it's not so much of was it like it's the same with Steph and KD and the Warriors. Who cares? They won the title, right? Like at the end of the day, that's the answer. And so if the Suns do it, I think it could be Durant, it could be Booker, and there's ways for each of that to happen, which is why I think we can maybe break that down a little bit more in a future episode. But my answer is Devin Booker. And there's a few reasons for it. And it has to look a lot like what we saw in that 2023 postseason because you're absolutely right. Smaller players don't have as easy of a way to dominate on a basketball court as bigger players. Duh. They're further from the basket. They can have less versatility on both ends. It's just harder. But what we saw Devin Booker do in 2023 against the Clippers and against the Nuggets was look as close to young Kobe and young Michael Jordan as we can ever really recall a player, and maybe Dwayne Wade, right? Looking before Ant did it and made us all use that comparison this year. He was everywhere on defense, forcing turnovers, guarding everybody. Jamal Murray, Russell Westbrook, Kawhi Leonard, Eric Gordon back when he was a Clipper, whoever it was. Scoring at all 3 levels, creating pressure by just jamming the ball down both of those teams' throats in transition. He was like a freight train in that series, if people remember. It was the most athletic and overwhelming I can ever remember him being. That's a high bar. Maybe he cannot do that every night in a postseason environment against the best teams. But I have to believe that he can. And you add in, he's a better playmaker than Durant. He's a little more, I guess, he has some dimensions with his quickness and things that KD might not have at this age. I just think there's more ways that I can imagine Booker doing it, given that age discrepancy and maybe point in their career discrepancy, given the injuries and everything that KD has had to withstand, where I can just imagine it being that level of just dominance and overwhelming for Booker, a lot easier than Durant, who I think has settled into more of a jump shooting, scoring only kind of phase of his career.
That's absolutely right. That part, that Kevin Durant has done that. Kevin Durant is going to have to change his ways, and he did in the playoffs, which led me to believe that he's just going to do it again. Here's why I'll push back on the Devin Booker thing when he went supernova, nuclear, Michael Jordan's actual son, Devin Booker, in that playoffs. He ended up breaking down, and we knew it was going to happen. And I think he was shooting 60, 50, 100 splits. Like it was insane. It was something I had never seen before, but we knew he was going to break down. And also against that Clippers series, no Kawhi Leonard for pretty much all of it, as well as you go into that Nuggets series. He's really good for those first 4 games. And then in that 6th and 5th game, he literally ran out of gas. And a part of that is when your shots aren't falling, and sometimes Devin Booker's aren't, and that just happens. That's just part of the game. But when your shots aren't falling, the way to get yourself back in rhythm, get to the basket, get to the free throw line, just see one go in. And Devin Booker, I just don't think has the physical makeup. I just said he could do it the regular season. The regular season is not nearly as physical as the playoffs. I just don't see him that when his shots aren't falling, consistently get to the basket and get to the line in a playoffs where they swallow their whistle to the point where like Kevin Durant can. He's not necessarily really strong, but he's just bigger and longer than Devin Booker, which is why if this team's going to win a championship, I think it has to be at minimum Kevin Durant 1A, Devin Booker 1B, and it's not to slight to anyone. It's just the physical specimen that God gave Kevin Durant and not Devin Booker. I just think it's going to be hard for him to continue to do that.
All right. I have a little bit of a rebuttal on the KD side of things. We'll do that after the break, and we'll talk about a little bit of revisionist history and why this question is so fun, looking back at that 2021 finals, all coming up next. Now a message from our lovely friends at the FanDuel Sportsbook, which are sponsoring today's episode. You've heard us talk a ton about FanDuel over the years. It is, of course, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network and America's number one sportsbook. But we have something a little different going on right now with FanDuel now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. We are talking about the best of the best in the NBA on today's show, including Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. They are just being absolutely slaughtered in the MVP odds, and I think it's frankly a travesty. Somehow Stephen Curry and Ja Morant are ahead of either Suns player. Victor Wembanyama substantially ahead of any Suns player, and he would be impressive if he could even break 500 in the win-loss this year. So, KD at 6,000, Book at 10,000. You're not going to have to worry about it for a while, but the point is you put the 5 in, you get the YouTube TV, watch a little NFL, and then, hey, if they do win MVP, it feels that much better in about, 8 months? Download the FanDuel Sportsbook at FanDuel.com now to take part. All right, Ben, let's close it out here. So, I have a point to make on the Durant side of it that, again, is no knock on him. And I will just say, again, to reiterate here, part of why this is a fun...
Get him, Kevin.
Part of why this is a fun question, right? And kind of one that could go in a bunch of different directions is, within the past 4 years, we've seen both guys do it, right? We were just talking about 2023, and I hear you. Book did break down. But we also saw KD do this in 2021, even after the injuries and even on a team that maybe didn't maximize him to the fullest extent. They were injured, they were old. That Nets team was, kind of like the Michael Vick Eagles. It was just like a bunch of dudes you forgot about that all ended up signing with the Brooklyn Nets, right? It's kind of like that. So we've seen it. I can't really argue, neither can you, a ton that it's not possible when we've seen it. But the fascinating thing about Kevin Durant forever has been, especially once, kind of after the foot injury, which was like his first big injury and started to affect how he played even back then, like 10 years ago now. He's like 7 feet tall, but he has never really played the way, like I mentioned, Amari Stoudemire or somebody that's like a downhill athletic freak 7-footer. He is a little more like another guy you mentioned, like a Dirk Nowitzki. And so it's just fascinating where I can agree with you. Bigger players, the history of the league shows us, right? Like they're going to be that guy most of the time in these spots. But does KD really play in a way that is like constantly maximizing his size and length advantage? That's the part where I think of him as not too different than Booker in terms of how they affect the game.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's not me saying Kevin Durant is going to be this runaway freight train, LeBron James style, and getting to the basket oftentimes. Because Kevin Durant, just sounds stupid, but it's true, has more in common with Steph Curry on the offensive side than he does LeBron James.
Mhm.
The thing is, though, is it's an option for him. Earlier in his career, yes. I'm not so sure if he's still going to do that now, although I just mentioned in the playoffs, their short run, he was getting to the basket just a little bit more, it felt like. It's just an option for Kevin Durant. If his shots aren't falling, he's able to get to the line. He's able to get to the basket. Devin Booker, it's just going to be tougher to do so. That's my only argument.
Yeah.
And it's not me saying Devin Booker can't do it, right? The question is who's more likely to do it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you got to lean on that. Basically, if you're going to win a championship, you don't want to do what you want to do. You got to do what's most likely to happen. And so with Devin Booker, I mean, listen, even in that 2021 playoffs, and I hate poo-pooing on Devin Booker, but that game 5 and game 6, he wasn't amazing, if I'm not mistaken. Definitely not in game 6 of the NBA Finals. He wasn't amazing. I can't remember exactly how well he was in game 5, but if I remember, he wasn't great in that one either. And then again, against the Mavericks in game 7, just wasn't great. If you can take someone out of a series, you're going to more easily, that was almost really offensive, more easily take out Devin Booker. It's going to be really hard to take out Kevin Durant. I mentioned this in a couple episodes ago. There's like 3 guys in the NBA that can contain Kevin Durant. There's the guy from Minnesota's name, Jaden McDaniels. There's maybe Kawhi Leonard, but he's never available. And then there's Aaron Gordon. Those are the 3 guys made in a lab to be able to contain Kevin Durant. There's like 20 guys, one being Drew Holiday, who's smaller than Devin Booker, that can take the guy out of a series. And it's not me saying Devin Booker won't do it. I've seen him do it. Just the more likely scenario is Kevin Durant. And that's who I think the Suns do need to lean on, especially offensively.
No, I think those are all valid points. And I hear you loud and clear on the free throw stuff. People still, even though KD has adapted his style over time and post Achilles to not be such an aggressive downhill driver the way in Oklahoma City, he was just lethal with that triple threat position. And they still foul him. They still foul him for whatever reason. They treat him like he's still 24-year-old Kevin Durant in the NBA Finals or whatever, rather than, hey, he's going to jump shoot me to death. Let me play him that way, and kind of stonewall him and contest. So
is there anyone in the NBA that gets fouled on more jump shots than Kevin Durant?
No, and it's very Dirk-like, right? That's another comp with
time.
Dirk. People would do that to Dirk, and it's like, the dude's 40. Stop fouling him. Like, let him take the elbow jumper, see what happens. Live with the results. It's goofy, but that he has that magic trick to get easy points that I absolutely agree matters, and it's not going away. It hasn't gone away. I don't see it going away, and that is an advantage that he has. But the question I was going to pose to you, maybe we can use this to close out. How different I just love these hypotheticals, so I know it's a little silly. But the Suns were up 2-0 in the NBA Finals in 2021, right? You mentioned Game 5. You were correct on Game 6. The Game 5 was Book had 40.
That's right.
They
That's
did
right.
lose, right? He
That
had
was the
four,
game where he dunked on Giannis. So I was mistaken.
he had 40 in Games
I
4
know
and
Game
5.
6 he was bad.
Game 6 he was 8 of 22. I just looked it up. I'm not going to pretend like I had that in my back pocket. But how different would you feel? How different would this conversation be if they hang on to that 2-0 lead? Bud doesn't adjust the defensive coverage, trim down the rotation. Chris Middleton doesn't get hot. A few plays late from Drew Holiday and Giannis go a different way. There's no, block on the alley-oop. There's no all this stuff. We would be saying Book's done it already. Of course he can do it again, right?
Absolutely. Sorry, you're saying all these things, and I'm just getting PTSD from Giannis Antetokounmpo blocking DeAndre Ayton or Drew Holiday stripping Devin.
The listeners know I take us down painful memory lane.
You just did that, and I understand. Yes, the conversation would be so different. It just, as you're saying it, I'm like, just shoot it, man. You don't need to pass out, Book. Just shoot the ball. Ayton, be a little bit more aggressive, but whatever. That's in the past. Yes, the conversation.
Drew Holiday have like the brain of most NBA players rather than his lunatic brain to think to do all the things that he does. Yeah.
Man, that hurts. That
brutal.
That hurts so bad. I thought that they were going to win that championship. I was planning the parade. I was in Boston when it happened. I was telling my wife, we need to get back home as soon as I'm not missing the only parade I will ever get to go to. And you know what? Didn't have to worry about booking my flight back home really quickly. Anyways, yes, it would be completely different. Right now, the conversation to a lot of other people and the host of the show I'm on, Jody Ayler, we argue about this all the time. The conversation for now is changed on Jason Tatum because he led his team to a championship. Jason Tatum for the longest time was not that guy. For the longest time. And so now, just because he won a championship, and he wasn't the best player on that team, and I'd argue he wasn't the second best player on that team either, the narrative has changed. If Devin Booker wins that championship, the narrative is not allowed to be changed. You just can't, especially with the statistics that he did put up on a team with a lot of good role players and an aging Chris Paul. It would have been one of the most impressive championships over the last decade at that point. It just would have been. I mean, Kawhi Leonard is up there, the 2019 Raptors. Granted, there were some injuries, but there were with the Suns too. Yes, the narrative is we're not even talking about that. We're not even having this conversation. I don't even know if they trade for Kevin Durant. I don't even know if I'm here.
True. Yeah, they don't.
Everything's. No. Instead, we live in
They don't make all the all-in moves because they already would have gotten what they were trying to get. Yeah, if
the Suns win that championship, we are all so much happier. But anyways,
we're all happier. We all have joy in our hearts if they're able to.
I'm so frustrated.
So look, but like the whole reason I bring that up is like I just think again we've seen whether you're talking about 2021 for Book, you're talking about the brief 11 games we saw in 2023 with Book. You're talking about 2021 with KD, or obviously the Warriors years or some of the Thunder years with Durant. They have a track record that tells us maybe both of them are just that good. Maybe it's just 36 unbothered season, and it's just like both of them are, first team All NBA caliber guys, and just they run away with it, or maybe one of them is a very clear front runner. I just think it's an interesting conversation. It's one worth having. They're not going to think about it this way. Mike Budenholzer is not going to be drawing up plays saying, oh, well, actually, I'm going to have 60% of my playbook be dedicated to Book scoring because he's our number one. Of course, it doesn't work that way, but we know history tells us that hierarchy does come into play and it does matter. And somebody has to do it night in and night out consistently in order to get where they want to go. The Wolves, who we mentioned, Anthony Edwards, didn't do it consistently. They didn't win a championship, right? Luka got hurt. They flamed out Dallas, even though they were so great early on. This is what has to happen. So, all right, there we go. We will circle back, I think, to the how of all of this. I think that will make for a good conversation. We'll add that to our list to come back to as we continue our season preview series. Hit follow or subscribe. If you haven't already, become an everydayer. Get all of these answers to all of these questions heading toward Media Day. And we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.